Hello, I'm Lucinda Jolly, a South African arts writer and educator. This podcast is an invitation to unpack South African sculptor Kevin Brand's sculptural assemblage titled Janjaweed, which means devils on horseback. It's suitable for art enthusiasts, art educators, and students. The information in this podcast is adapted from my work, first published in the Daily Maverick in the Life section under the title The Unpacking of Janjaweed, Devils on Horseback, a sculptural assemblage by Kevin Brand. We expect the arts to be littered with anarchic acts of artists destroying their artwork from time to time, and while all are provocative, some are in serious service to ideology, whereas others in the equally serious game of marketing and keeping a brand fresh. 4 years ago, British graffiti artist Banksy sold a copy of the famous image of a girl releasing a red balloon, which then self-destructed minutes after it was sold. This is nothing new. Already in the 60s, artist Gustav Metzger was creating self-destructing paintings from acid and plastic in protest against nuclear warfare. The first axe or guitar was smashed on stage was by the lank-haired, long-faced rock star Pete Townsend to the primal roar of delighted fans, which was also in the 1960s. And from Proust to Kafka, many writers have burnt their work, although less as an anarchic act and more as a form of self-protection. But when a group of exhibition goers gathered one Saturday morning at the Association of Visual Arts Gallery, AVA, to watch sculptor Kevin Brand disassemble his wooden sculpture Janjaweed, there was no rampant fiery destruction, just the soft nudge of a wooden mallet when a piece was unwilling to release and a crowbar at the ready. But for the most part, the pieces of his sculpture came apart really easily, revealing their blood-red interiors as they were gently and quietly laid to rest on the floor. An understated, almost careful, deeply soul anarchy was in the air. Unlike Banksy or Metzger, who were involved in complete annihilation, the pieces that make up Janjaweed are eternally fixed in a never-ending cycle of assemble and disassemble, as if decreed by some giant Meccano god. Spool back with me to what became before the dissemble. So for many artists it begins with a sketch, their own. But Brand's Janjaweed sculptures began with a sketch, but not his own, a child sketch. In fact, a Sudanese refugee child sketch. And when you look at the sketch reproduction, you can almost hear the strokes of the blue wax crayon. Feel the crayon clutched in the hand of Doa, the Sudanese child on the cusp of adolescence, as it rasped its resistant way across a scrap of paper. Now that such a page, an ordered, sober universe of graph paper, could hold an image of such violence at the hands of the Janjaweed, the Arab militia active in Darfur. Doe's drawing shows the Janjaweed on camels attacking a village. He drew a woman flinging her arms into the air, as she is singled out for rape or for killing, or both. There's a soldier taking a woman away to be raped. In her hand she has a cell phone and wants to call the agencies for help. Such remarkable recall, such specificity from a child in such harrowing circumstances. The drawing has been referred to as a child's version of Picasso's Guernica, but it could just as well be a child's version of Goya's 3rd of May, a child's version of Dali's self-construction with boiled beans and in brackets premonition of civil war. Whatever the echo, it's a view of humankind's inhumanity to itself through the eyes of a child, a scene that no child should ever witness. It was as if the universe had been peeled back and cracked open like a sinister Kinder chocolate egg, and the toys of horror at its sweet chocolate centre tumbled out, that this young adolescent could retrieve with such clarity a year-old memory and give expression to it with such vividness and schematic accuracy is remarkable. That it could be used as supporting evidence in the International Crime Court in The Hague is truly remarkable. But then the journey to the realization of Brand's Jajanweed sculpture is also remarkable, dogged with such resistance and the unusual. Douwe's drawing was done in 2005 when the Human Rights Watch investigators travelled to refugee camps along Chad-Sudan border, housing refugees from Darfur. To keep them occupied, the investigators gave children paper and crayons while they gathered testimony from the children's parents and caregivers. Douwe's drawing was among the images of violence. As chance and a confluence of conspiring elements would have it, Douwe's drawing was one of the drawings published in a local South African newspaper along with several Sudanese children's drawings, which illustrated the country's conflict. Mary Shepherd, Brand's mother-in-law, cut out Douwe's drawing and gave it to Brand thinking he might be interested in it. Brand subsequently left it on his table and forgot about it, where it marinated for a couple of years before taking hold and dictating to the artist exactly how it was to unfold. I literally woke up one night, he said, and I literally saw the whole thing. And I'm not spiritual and I don't believe in magic, but I can't explain it. I first saw Janjaweed, meaning devils on horseback, in Arabic, 4 years ago at the Jewish Museum, where it was appropriately placed near drawings done by children in concentration camps. In that same year, Guernica commemorated its 80th year. The timing of the current exhibition is also so interesting. This year, 2022, marks the first trial in the International Crime Court, ICC, in The Hague, dealing with the Darfur conflict, in which, according to the United Nations, approximately 300,000 people were killed and 2.5 million displaced. Brand's artistic development predates Google and internet at a time when his experience of art books accessible were often the ones hopelessly out of date. And yet he'd spend hours studying the images and those of the stained glass windows of his childhood church, trying to work out how they were constructed. His love of Meccana sets and the fascination of how things get put together like puzzles underlies the way he conceives of and puts sculpture together. Brand is one of those artists who just doesn't like being put in a box. He says, I'm someone, just someone, going through life trying to understand what it's about. It just so happens to me that it gets manifested in work. Instead, he prefers to see himself as someone who makes things. In the past, Brand made many sculptures which he refers to as statement-type things. This mindset is very present in sculptures like 19 Boys Running, a response to the 1985 Uitenhage massacre, where the police opened fire on a crowd of people, many of whom were en route to a funeral. You may remember back in the 90s, the massive blue and white amphora-shaped vessel which bobbed in the moat outside the Castle of Good Hope for some time. This was Brand's comment on the colonial reach of the Dutch East India Company VOC, symbolized through Delft pottery. But Brand has shifted gears and is currently far more interested in doing far more intimate things. That's what he says. Brand's Janjaweed sculpture isn't a copy of Douwe's drawing, as much as an evocation of the frenetic feeling that it generated in the artist. In keeping with the integrity of Douwe's original drawing, Brand has kept the 8 human figures. Some are on camels, some are a soldier-type figure on a horse, armed with an assault rifle. There are 2 figures engaged in an altercation, and 2 more figures. Brand is not only conceptually powerful, but he's also a master craftsman. And Janjaweed is beautifully crafted from wood oddments, sourced from discarded students' work, ready for the skip, whose fragments help the sculptor visualize the various sculptural elements. One recognizes the odd table leg. Oddments or not, Janjaweed is a piece of superb, understated craftsmanship. Surfaces are sanded down and pitted to give a feeling of immediacy and urgency that the original drawing carries. Scuffed squares, which Brand said took 4 months to mimic the graph paper on which the drawing was done. He came to realize that the actual drawing paper was just as much part of the drawing and as important. And the base of the sculpture or the drawing paper is always placed at an angle to the floor, suggesting that it is separate from both floor and room. And here's the strangest thing. While the sculpture provokes such powerful feelings, Brand admits almost sheepishly in his straightforward, guileless way that a large reason for making the work was purely aesthetic. It's as if the focus on the aesthetic has liberated him from the constraints of causes and ideologies and opened a space for the breath of feeling to be ushered in. With Janjaweed, Brand has created a sculptural pop-up book where at the pull of a string from the flat page of a child's drawing magically transforms into a life-size, three-dimensional environment. Except that this pop-up isn't a fairy tale Disney castle, but a child's nightmare made incarnate. As fellow sculptor and close friend Brett Murray says about the ethos of Brand's work, a combination of innocence with violence. It is this combination that drives the feel of the work. Brand conceived Janjaweed over 14 months and in 2 iterations, the sculpture as a whole and the sculpture deconstructed. While both iterations are meant to be seen, in the first exhibition, viewers could only experience the first stage, with the occasional hint of its dissembling in the flash of red underside in the sculpture. But in the recent exhibition at the AVA, the viewer got a chance to see not only the sculpture aerially for the first time, so from above, but also was invited to bear witness to its deconstruction, where the blue interiors were dismantled to reveal the screaming arterial red gullets of dismemberment and their scattering across the floor, which actually resembled the carnage of a littered battlefield. Janjaweed occupies one of the sweet spots in my career as an arts writer, one whose impact has lodged deeply into my psyche, and I feel really privileged to have seen this work of the uber-talented, reserved, taciturn South African artist who's produced some of the most powerful work of our times. Its impact has a far greater reach than just another artwork, and it would sit very comfortably next to Picasso's Guernica and Goya's 3rd of May. I'm surprised that the work of this caliber, reach and pertinence hasn't been snatched up by an international museum or gallery, or even more appropriately, by the United Nations or the International Criminal Court at The Hague, so that it receives the global exposure and recognition it so richly deserves. A well-known South African artist commented, "If I'd produced just one work like this in my lifetime, I would die happy." And he's right.